Coming up on tonight's UAP News Show.
Is Jason Sands the next whistleblower?
The Chris Melon substack Clapback.
What does consciousness, parapsychology, and manifesting all have in common?
Give it to us straight, a plea for transparency.
And was a UFO seen over LaGuardia Airport in New York City?
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie, and we're back at it again for another episode of UAP Society's weekly UAP and UFO News Show. We've combed through this past week's most exciting, intriguing, and informative happenings, and I'm stoked to get started. So without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Greetings, cosmic enthusiasts. It's Justin here, and welcome to the UAP Society's UAP UFO News Show. Your ticket to an interstellar adventure like no other. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, get ready for a cosmic roller coaster ride through the latest updates from the far reaches of the galaxy.
Yes, you are in for a treat as we bring you the latest and greatest UAP and UFO news. So find your seats, strap in, and get ready to go on a galactic roller coaster ride with us.
Please consider subscribing if you like this content. And while you're at it, drop us a like. We would greatly appreciate it. It really helps the algorithm.
Yep. Click all the things. That'd be great.
Is Jason Sands the next whistleblower? If you've been online at all this week, then I'm sure you've heard the name Jason Sands by now. If not, the short version of the story is that he is an alleged whistleblower with knowledge of crash retrieval programs, has had alien contact, and who is due to be featured on James Fox's upcoming film, The Program. The problem is, he's not being received well by the UFO community at all. So many people have so many things to say about his credibility or lack thereof, and it's hard to make sense of it all. To help us gain clarity and talk this situation over, we are joined by Patrick from VETTED in this exclusive conversation.
All right, let's get on topic.
Okay, yeah,
I wanted to talk to you about Jason Sands. So let me just introduce it from my perspective so I could get my head in the right space. So basically, I'm sitting here, I'm editing the news video. It was the 420 video. I remember that specifically. And my head was totally in the editing game, right? And then he comes in, he's like, babe, look, there's a new whistleblower on Twitter Space. You have to listen to this. Da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, fuck off. Fuck off. I'm focused on this. He's like, no, really, you need to listen to this. I'm like, yeah, really. I'm trying to finish this because I was almost done and I didn't want to fuck with the flow. You know what I mean? So, but after I was finished and it was rendering, I went out onto the couch and I was listening to it with him. And I was just taking it all in. And even now, I still don't know what opinion to have, right? Because it seems like there's two different camps. And one camp is very lonely. There's the, I vet for this guy or I vouch for this guy, and that's James Fox. He's kind of sitting in that camp alone. And then there's everybody else that's shit talking, saying this guy is whack, don't believe him, blah, 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 whatever. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to get your perspective because you did a deep dive 3 days in a row. Awesome content. Thank you for doing that. So basically my question to you is what's your summary of this whole thing and where do you stand?
And first of all, before you answer that, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's great to have you here. And for anybody out there that's watching that doesn't know of VETTED,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, definitely go check it out. Patrick is amazing. He produces fire content every day. He doesn't miss a day.
Right. I should have started with that, but I'm just excited for this conversation.
You guys are a team. That's how you do it. He's got you covered. You guys got each other covered, right? Yeah, Sweet. Exactly. That's all that is. Thank you guys for having me on the show, first of all. I love what you guys are doing. So please, whoever's watching, hit that like button, comment down below. What do you think about what I'm getting ready to say?
Right.
All right. So Jason Sands, he's a very interesting figure. I think he was right to come and get you in the middle of the night and say, hey, there's something going on. Because it is everything everyone's talking about at this point.
It is, right, yeah.
Right. So, this character that sort of came out of nowhere to a lot of people, but who has been behind the scenes working in this community, meeting with people, telling his story. And it happened in the mid-90s. This encounter with a blue type being, right? That's kind of in the air too of exactly the description of this being. And he's had quite a story, how it's impacted the UFO community. Like you said, it took a long time. I guess it's not really that long, but it took almost a week for James Fox, because this guy's going to be in James Fox's documentary, right? For him to come out and say, now, if you read his statement carefully, James Fox's statement, which came out exactly right after my video ended yesterday, by the way. So, and again, I know that a lot of people watch my show, and I have a feeling that people were watching that deep dive because a lot of people in the comment, everyone was just saying somebody needs to say something to support this guy.
Right, I know.
Like
I'm still waiting
James
for
needs to
Grush to
come
come
out.
forward and say something and see if he. I'm still
Yeah,
waiting
me
to see if
too.
Grush claims this guy or not.
Right, that's what I've been waiting
I
for. I've
really,
been
really
waiting for
want
Grush
him to
to
come
come out.
forward and say something.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. But James's statement, if you read it carefully, is that I dealt with this guy. He's going to be in my documentary. You know, he is who he says he is. He worked where he said he worked, but it's all of that can be verified. Okay, no problem. But that's not what people really want to know. What's verified, right? People want to know this alien encounter and that he worked in the program in the 90s, right, for a few years. That's the story. That's what can't be verified, right, or vetted. And James even says that in his statement. I'm glad he said it at the end that, like, hey, we need to be looking into this. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to be skeptical. It's okay to keep looking into his claims, right? Insinuating that what is happening online is kind of okay. Like, he's okay with it because he's getting to see things about this guy too, right? He's getting to see how this guy is interacting and what's happening. And I promise you, anyone trying to, get information like that is going to be happy with information. Information isn't bad. It's what you do with it. Right. That's why I'm always surprised when someone's like, oh, I think this is this. You piece of shit. How could you think that? There's no way. It's what I said. It's like, whoa. What? None of that matters. Right. Like, it's just information. You do what you want with the information. But I'm happy that James said that. I think he covered all his bases. I think he stuck up for the guy that he's putting in his film, which I totally respect. You're making a film. You had a guy, and you have a relationship. Like, there's some loyalty. I respect that, right? But he's also, putting that part at the end. And I thought that was great, to be honest with you, because we do need to be looking into this. If we're supposed to use this guy's story as a springboard or a diving board for disclosure or more information or this and that, then yes, we need to know that diving board works.
Right.
We got to make sure.
And that there's water underneath, not just an empty pool, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. Again, if Joe Schmo, who lives down the street, comes out, your neighbor, and tells you a story, you're not going to vet that guy, right? You're not going to be like, well, let me look in your background and see what's going on. That's not how it works. Like, it's all good. Those are just, we take each other's sort of benefit of the doubt. You hear a story. Okay, cool. But this guy's different. This guy's claiming to come from the intel community and wants actions to be taken based off of his story. That's a big deal. And money, taxpayer money involved with this. Yeah, we need to know if you're telling the truth. I'm sorry, but that's a different situation than, again, just Joe Schmo telling their story. Which I'm more likely to believe my neighbor than people coming from the intel community. But, I interviewed Danny Sheehan. That interview goes out today. When does this go out? Tomorrow?
I was going to say, by the time this comes out, your video will already be out. So if you want to talk about that, you totally can. It won't spoiler alert your own show.
Yeah, fair enough. Go check out my interview with Danny Sheehan. Definitely. We talk about Jason Sands for overall, it's kind of pieced together, like 30 minutes. It's kind of pieced together around different. Apparently, Jason went to Danny and their law firm, and he tried to get representation. And this was just a few weeks ago.
So recently, super recently.
Okay. Very recently. He just went, and Danny and his team tried to verify him and whatever to see if they could represent him. And they told him no because of the inconsistencies in his story that they couldn't verify.
That's not a good look. So here's another person in like the not believing James category. And
Jason.
So what'd I say? James? Sorry.
James, yeah. Jason, yeah.
Jason, my bad. But like, so that's a big deal because if Sheehan's not willing to represent him, then that means his story's like looking like Swiss cheese. There's holes all in it. Like, the only thing we could really verify based on what he's provided so far, at least to us, is that he's got the DD2. So we know he was in the military. What?
DD 214.
DD-214.
DD-214. We know that he was in the military. We know how long. We know what positions or careers he held for what amount of time. But as far as all of that other stuff, I mean, there's, what do you do with that?
Yeah, that's
exactly.
That's the big question, right? Like, I mean, do you take everybody's word for it? Everybody that's there. There's been like two people that have come out and have said that he is not credible, and now 3 with Danny Sheehan, right? And just a little bit ago, I was reading another post from somebody else within the intelligence community vouching for Jason.
Who was that?
I don't know who this guy is.
It was on Reddit?
Yeah, it was on Reddit, and then I think it was retweeted by Joe Murga.
Oh, the UFO
now
Joe? Yeah.
Now, just to clarify, that person is anonymous, and they're just saying they work for the intelligence.
Right.
So there's no way to verify that either.
No offense, but I don't buy it at all.
Yeah,
okay.
I just don't buy it at all, because again, what's going to help? Again, you can verify parts of Jason's story, right? There's lots of things to verify about the guy, but that doesn't mean anything, because what needs to be verified is his fantastical story.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people are saying, and I agree, the people that were with him on this excursion, that's who needs to come forward. But as I showed in my third video, my last deep dive, those 2 people are not around.
Right.
One of them has disappeared, quote unquote, and the other was discharged for mental illness and is disappeared as well. So
double oof.
A double oof, right? And again, the inconsistency of the big thing to me is why he was out there. He's told so many different stories of why he was out there and what he was doing. And that's probably what Danny is meaning, because Danny goes on to say, like, people like Jason are really bad for business because they make up. And this is not me saying this about Jason. Okay. This is Danny saying, like, people like Jason who come out and make up stories like this, they just hurt the push that what we're trying to do, because people focus on that, then they go, yeah, see, everything's bullshit. It's all bullshit, right? And so a lot of people think he is some sort of plant brought in to create this whatever, but that's a long time ago. I don't, plant is that's a big stretch for Jason to be this plant. Could he be exaggerating a story, adopting a story from something he heard? Yes. I don't know enough. Right. Okay. At the end of the day, I just present everything, and everyone
That's basically what we do. Like, I mean, to be 100% frankly honest, I still don't even know what to make of this, because there's just so many inconsistencies. 100%. It's like, first of all, I want to know, like, who comes out on a Twitter space? Like, is that the new norm? Like, I thought people came out on, like, but like, if he came out with like Ross Coulthart status, I'd be like, okay, whoa. But he came out on a Twitter space. Like, who does that?
I was just about to make the distinction between how Grush came out and how this guy is coming out.
Right, right.
David Grush, did a really long interview with Ross Coulthart, right, and came out on News Nation. I mean.
That felt more official to me. This Twitter space business feels like hoopla.
Also, within the first week of David Grush coming out, there were so many credible people within the government, within the military, that vouched for him.
Yeah, he got the blue check mark right away.
Immediately, these people started vouching for him, saying he is who he is. He has done what he said.
This is a whole different situation, though.
Right.
And not only, but there's been other inconsistencies too, like just simple little things, like James Fox's tweet. He spells Jason with a Y, Jayson.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
That's weird. How come when Sands was talking about Dave Grush, he said Dave Grush? I mean, if this guy was really boys with Dave, he would know how to say the man's last name right? I mean, I don't. There's just lots of things that are like,
and then Jesse Michaels come out, and
he's like, I don't claim that
and
dude.
He's buddy with David Grush,
right? That part too, right?
Right. But he probably talks to him all the time.
Jesse was basically like, look, if I thought the guy was credible, I'd have done a show with him, and I didn't. So it speaks for itself. I was like, ooh, all right.
to me, there's too many red flags, with this guy, for me to believe the story wholeheartedly,
I want to believe, like, it's like I want to, but there's just so many things going on that's making me feel. That's making me feel.
I want to believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, and I brought up in my videos too, like, if you, here's the thing with stories like this, is it's like, if you believe Jason's story, then what happens? You believe everything that's connected to it. You have to, for it
Yeah.
to be true, meaning not only did he have an interaction with this being in the desert, right? Now we need to accept that the telepathic communication is possible, and that there's aliens wearing military uniforms who work in the base Area 51. Do you see what I'm saying? Now all of a sudden
Yeah.
there's this
Yeah.
tangential truths that you have to accept as truth now.
It
And you're like,
expands on
holy
a
shit.
lot. Yeah, it brings
Yeah,
the
so
SSP into it, you know, the secret space
it's a
program
lot.
with their 20 and
Yeah,
backs, you
exactly.
know, like it brings a lot of different things into play. And it's like, you know, I
Exactly.
do have I don't want to say a lot of knowledge, but I did deep dives on the secret space programs and the 20 and backs. And I know you brought up Corey Good and Randy Kramer. Those are just only two guys that are involved in the scene, and both of them got drama involved behind their names. So it is what it is. But like, yeah, I want to believe, but at the same time, there's just so much mud in the water. I can't see clearly.
And to be fair to, you know, let's say, I don't like these terms, but I use them just because people recognize the terms. But for believers out there,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to be like, I don't think this guy's story true, but I think what he's talking about is true. Meaning, I think
Okay.
there's a government reverse engineering. I think we have
Yeah.
these things, but this guy's full of shit, right? Like, it's okay to be both. It's okay to say, no, I believe in this stuff that's happening. Like, basically, that's Danny. Yeah, that's what Danny was telling me. Like, of course, I mean, look what he's doing, right? He clearly believes in this phenomenon, what's happening. But it's okay to be like, this guy's full of shit. We're going, this is what we're pushing for.
Right.
We're trying to get Congress behind it. We're trying to get tax money. We're trying to push for disclosure. You mean you literally can't have people, if Jason's story is not true, you can't have people like that coming out. And let's, you know, the thing, y'all made the point about Grush and News Nation and all of that. And I agree. And there could be a longer conversation for how media's changed. And maybe there's a reason that Jason could come out in a Twitter space. Okay, blah, 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 blah. But let's be real. Let's go with y'all's premise, because I agree with it right now, which is when you clicked on and you saw David Grush's interview, what immediately happens? You immediately have a sense of credibility, like y'all said, right? He's on this show. He's talked to this guy. Boom. I know things have happened. Ross has vetted this guy, News Nation, blah, blah. Now I can watch the show, right? When a guy comes out in a Twitter space, you don't see his face. You just hear voices. You don't know what the fuck's going on.
Right.
There's a mystery. It's stories all over the place. It's 5 hours and it's going back and forth every which way. Nobody was like really leading the way. The people he had been speaking with behind the scenes who were helping him, supposedly, right? Other podcasters and stuff. He just comes out, doesn't tell anybody, doesn't whatever. And that throws them for a loop. They're having to run around. It's like, I don't know what and he was in the space last night again, talking when he said he wouldn't. And he apparently got a fight with Rick Doty.
What?
Oh, wow.
Him and
Doty, out of all people, that's like,
dude, so
the irony
crazy.
in
I'm
that
telling
shit.
you have no idea. The stuff that Doty said in here, I thought, is this real? Is Doty really saying, like, what the fuck? Does this guy not understand how crazy
on that
he
one,
sounds?
because I didn't hear that yet.
Yeah, no, I'm going to make a video. Basically, Rick is like, yeah, be careful with this guy. He's probably a plant, been sent in for disinformation. And, you know, I'm just like, you mean like you?
Yeah, like
You mean like you, Rick?
Oh my God,
the
that's
pot
crazy.
calling the kettle black, huh?
That's what I was trying to think of. Thank you.
And he was judging him hard on it. I mean, really going in hard on Jason.
Really?
And then, but I got to admit,
Jason hold his ground though? Like, how did?
Here's the thing. This is what's weird about it is Jason was quiet. And then all of a sudden he starts speaking up and, you know, Rick, you better keep your mouth shut. And I'm gonna do this to, you know, like, you know, sort of a weird threat. You know, you didn't check this right. You didn't do this right. You're out here saying this stuff, you and Eric and blah, blah, blah. And then right as Jason is telling Rick, like, you know, you better watch your back and this and that. All of a sudden, you know, he's like, everyone's like, Rick, you there? And his line cut out.
Oh shit.
And then he comes back like 25 minutes later after Jason's gone. So like they never actually spoke to each other, but they were, I don't know, man. That made me feel like
weird.
I was like, wait a second. did Rick help this guy come out and he's pretending to have a fight with it? Because that's what this seems like to me now.
Oh.
This seems like Rick is just faking this. He doesn't really
like a catfish situation almost.
Yeah, well, let's pretend we have a fight, dude, and that no one would think we're connected.
Yeah.
Right. That's the best way to make sure, right? So I don't know. It just seems suspicious. Rick's background is suspicious, so that whole conversation was suspicious.
Yeah.
But Jason was real nervous and real shaky, and I just thought, this is a guy like he can't control his emotions. Like, does that make sense? It just seems so odd, man.
The whole thing
there's so
is
many
odd. The whole thing is
all
odd. There's oddities
Right,
everywhere.
right.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah.
All right. Could this be a disinformation campaign? You know, from within the IC. You know, to put out some BS and to make everybody jump on it.
I can't refute it.
Right. And then if all these people end up believing it, they're like, you know, and then a year later,
this is just like another one of those like, oh, look, squirrel.
Egg on our face, you know?
Distraction.
I don't know. There's just
totally
and the fact that Doty's involved salts that even more for me.
So,
you know?
So realistically, is it possible that this guy could be, you know, exactly who he says he is and had those experiences? Yes, it could be.
And if he is, I would feel real bad for most of the things I've said so far.
Yeah, but you know, I mean,
no, you shouldn't.
Just like everybody else, we have to question the claims that he's making. You know.
Yeah.
And if it's like, trust me, bro. You know, no, I want some evidence. I want some data. You know, just like everybody
you're
else.
Asking us for tax stuff. Like, again, your neighbor tells you a story, you're not going to really, you know, you're not here. You're not there to interrogate him. Or if someone comes on y'all's show who's tells their experience and they're just a normal person, right? Even an author or something, like nobody, like, okay. But you're connected to the government, ex-intel, asking these things to happen for you,
right?
And you need our help. Yeah, I'm sorry. So nobody should feel bad if it does later come out that Jason was telling the truth, because let's be real, the truth is also that he has inconsistencies in his story, and he has provided them himself. Meaning, it's not like, maybe I added a little bit to it by killing the blue alien.
Yeah,
I might have added to some madness.
Yeah,
but
maybe just a little piece.
but to be fair, I think it's a made up story. So how can I make up to a make up story? Does that make sense? Like,
right.
I just think it's funny that Jason Sands himself had to come out and make a statement saying, I didn't kill any blue aliens, people.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this right now. I'll say it on y'all's show.
Yeah.
You watch that he's going to retract that at some point. I bet that there is a story of a killed alien coming out soon. That's what I think is happening. And I think what's happening behind the scenes is a lot of people are getting confused by all these stories, and they're starting to get mixed and matched with different people. And it's hard to keep that consistency when it didn't actually happen to you. It's hard to keep. What did I say here? What did I do there? What's going on over here? What year was it? Oh shit. What did I say before? I said this, I said that. So I don't know. I'm more suspicious of Jason than I am. Like I want to believe him or indifferent. I'm definitely more suspicious. But we'll wait and see, man. At the end of the day, we do ask for firsthand people to come out, and we got it. We got our wish. So, to some extent, but yeah, I think the way he came out, the inconsistencies in his story, the fact that no one's backing him up, even James isn't.
Well, James
but that's not even a full backup.
Even he did, but then he took a couple steps back.
He said he was in the military, and he verified that he was in the military, and he did those,
which is basically what we did based off the documents he provided. So I don't know how much further James's vetting went than that. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
My coffee's kicking in.
No, it's all good. I mean, I think at the end of the day, a lot of people think the same thing, which is, look, I'm also going to just sit back and wait and see.
Yeah.
He'll go on the back burner. Yeah. He'll go on the back burner. There's a lot of other stuff to talk about, I'm sure, coming up. But I think it's okay to talk about him. I think it's okay to question. I think it's okay if he would do the same thing. He was in the military. He was in intel. You don't think they ask questions? They debunk. They look at stuff.
Good point.
Right? he's going to want, Jason Sands would do the exact thing to someone else telling him a story. The same thing we're doing to him. So no one should feel bad about asking questions or having an opinion on him. But we're also allowed to have our own opinions. He has his own opinions and gives them. So, yeah.
And my mind is not made up. You know, I'm willing to receive new information as new information comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we're all on that same page, and I think this 100%. Was a great conversation. Patrick, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you for your content. Appreciate you for your consistency. Appreciate you for your new Discord server, which, by the way, if you haven't checked it out yet, go do that. Yep. And just thanks. This is the first time we've had like a guest podcaster on the news show, so this is cool.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Y'all did great. This is awesome. This is a great part of. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks again, Patrick, for joining us. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. Anytime you want to come back. You're more than welcome to come back. Thank
Absolutely.
You. Not only was that conversation interesting, but Jesse Michaels joined Christian Harloff on his show, The Big Thing, to discuss the same thing. Let's hear what they had to say.
Yeah.
Well, so let me then I'm sure you've been paying attention to this Jason Sands stuff going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of all this. Because so for those people, again, Jason Sands was the guy. Now James Fox, who's very respected in the community, goes and he's making a new document, and he has this interview where he says that he's got this guy, and he's seen documents with this guy, he's seen pictures with this guy, and everyone's like, well, it's got to be this Jason Sands guy, because then Jason Sands comes out and he does this interview on Twitter Spaces.
Which not a good first move.
What are you doing? That's where
that's what I said.
You say, let me set up the News Nation or something, or do something because you're doing Twitter Spaces right away. That made me go, huh? What's he doing there? And so
same.
He detailed a lot of stuff. Now, one of the things that threw me off with this, they asked him about Grush, and he said, "Have you worked with Grush?" And he's like, "I've worked with Grush." He called him Grush. He called him Grush. Like, and we talk all the time. I'm like, "Well, why are you calling him Grush?" And it's like that, and that could just be a little thing inside of my head because I'm just now at this point, I'm looking at. I try to have a skeptic point of view as much as I have the disclosure point of view in there too. But this guy's talking about a lot of different things, because if the stuff that he's saying is accurate, and a guy like David Grush goes, no, this guy's legit. James Fox he's legit. Leslie Kane was in there listening to this Twitter Spaces.
So was Darcy Weir.
Sure.
So if all these people back this guy up, and he turns out to be the whistleblower and says the kind of shit that he's saying, it'll blow the roof off the place. But the first question is, are you following this guy, and what do you make of him?
I am following him. I met him once.
Okay.
Maybe the sort of revealed preference is that I didn't do a show with him. But I don't also actively distrust the guy. It's not like I don't want to knock him.
But you're like the rest of us. Something you want to see what's going on.
I want to see what's going on first, and definitely kind of a weird initial PR move to do Twitter Spaces. If you're like the first guy that like dealt with the material firsthand. So I don't know what your goal is there, but look, he seemed, when I met him, like pretty earnest and actually a little almost traumatized or something. Like
interesting.
He had gone through like a lot.
Okay.
But I just don't know exactly what to make of him.
Seems like everybody is having a hard time trying to figure out what to make of this guy. So to give you guys even more food for thought, or probably better said, more context to what we were talking about earlier, here's some Twitter highlights. So first up, James Fox, the filmmaker of the program that's upcoming, that's supposed to be featuring this guy, he says, James Fox here. For those who know me or are familiar with my work, know I fiercely go to the extra mile to weed out unsupportable claims. I have spent the last year conducting numerous interviews, researching claims, and doing my best to verify, within my means, people's credentials and the veracity of their statements. As part of this mix, I met with Mr. Jason Sands a little over a year ago, concerning whom there has arisen fierce debates on social media concerning his claims of official involvement in the UAP area and specific experiences associated with such. As part of my due diligence, I can state that he is who he says he is, has served in the military, and is willing to testify under oath and even take a polygraph test regarding his claims. Nonetheless, as with other whistleblowers who go public, this doesn't mean that what he has stated shouldn't be questioned regarding apparent inconsistencies and difficult to resolve claims. Evaluation of such continues to be a work in progress.
So there's a little bit of gray area there in his...
Speak on it. What you mean?
His comments, I believe.
How?
So he's vouching for Sands, but then he's also leaving it open.
Yeah.
That, he's still going through the vetted process, trying to vet this guy.
Yeah.
He's okay. So he's basically saying, yes, I think he is who he says he is.
Right.
But he's also leaving it open on the back end of that statement, for any sort of inconsistencies. If they come up, he could say, well, I said that it wasn't 100%.
Right.
Basically.
And I just wonder, what's going to happen if he does turn out to be incredible? Not incredible, yay, but not credible.
Not credible, yeah.
What's James going to do with his film? Because, I don't
think he's the star of the program.
He's not the star, but I have a tweet from somebody else that shows a good mental picture or visual of what I was just thinking of. I'm sorry, Go ahead.
All right, so James was coming out in support of Jason Sands, right? But on the opposite side of the camp, we have Tim McMillan that tweeted this. Cursory investigation, later confirmed by congressional and DoD sources, determined this individual was not credible well over a year ago. The fact that he would ever be included in any documentary in the first place is beyond laughable.
That hurt.
I think that's pretty harsh, especially, going towards James Fox. I don't think it's beyond laughable,
okay.
That beyond laughable comment at the end kind of was like, that's a little too far.
Okay.
But,
fair.
This Jason Sands guy definitely has, in my opinion, some credibility issues, that we need to work through. But, we shouldn't, I don't think we should go so hard as to
crack jokes,
laughable.
right? Yeah, I get it. Well, we also have a tweet from Eric Davis, who actually is one of Dave Grush's whistleblowers, that had this to say on his private Facebook group. Sands turned out to be either a liar or a believer of his own BS. He was never vetted, and his story keeps changing. People I collaborate with have met him and realized that his claims don't hold water. The only thing that they felt was certain from meeting Sands is that he likely did work at a U.S. Air Force base. Which, again, is what we've all already collectively said. It's we saw the DD-214s. We know he was in the military. We know he had honorable discharge. We know what careers he had and for how long. But as far as the experience in question, I think everybody kind of just wants more information or wants more people to come forward to either the people that were there on that mission with him, if they come forward and share their versions of that same experience, or if somebody comes forward and actually backs this guy 100%, that would be a game changer in the story, I feel like.
Yeah. Like we said in our conversation with Patrick just a few minutes ago, there's some big distinctions, about the way that he came out versus the way that Dave Grush came out,
Yeah.
And, I feel like it's important for us to keep that in mind when we're making a judgment call on Jason Sands.
Well, I'm going to be a devil's advocate on my own complaint right now. So my beef is that, I don't understand the coming out on Twitter Space thing. To me, that's lacks credibility. But then the people that are in support of somebody coming out on the Twitter Space is that it's live. It can't be edited. People could say what they want to say without anybody being able to do anything about it. Yeah. It's kind of like a get it all out there and hands up, you done your job kind of thing. But again, that kind of lacks credibility. It doesn't show professionalism, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh a critic, but the Twitter Space thing, as soon as you were showing me your phone with the Twitter Space, I'm like, do people do why is he on a Twitter Space? How is this happening here? I didn't understand it. It took me a while to comprehend what was going on.
Okay. So for me, the whole Twitter Space thing doesn't really speak to credibility as much. I mean, it does, but not as much as having other people within the government come out and vouch for you.
Right, of course.
Like Dave Grush did.
Right.
He had a lot of people from within the government, the very high up people, that were verified come out and say Dave Grush is who he says he is.
That hasn't happened for Sands.
That hasn't happened for
That has not happened for Sands. So what do you guys think is going on? Are you with James Fox and think that Jason Sands is credible? Or are you with pretty much everyone else that thinks he's full of shikaka? Or are you in the middle and just kind of don't know what to think yet? Let us know where you stand in the comment section.
Yep.
Up next, the Chris Melon Substack Clapback. Last week, we covered a story that we called Did the Latest FOIA Tell Too Much?, in which a conversation between Christopher Melon and Sean Kirkpatrick that happened on a text app called Signal was made public in a FOIA request from theblackvault.com. Well, this week, in response, Chris Melon decided he was going to clap back by releasing a Dopser-approved conversation from back in 2020, where he and a senior U.S. government official discussed crash retrieval programs and a specific UFO crash that happened in the 1950s. The tea has been spilt. But let's check out Chris's Substack article now. Another signal exchange. This is the type of information that has caused some of us to take allegations of recovered off-world materials seriously. By Christopher Melon and Hunter Melon, published April 22nd, 2024. Recently, as a result of a FOIA request, the Department of Defense released some signal exchanges I had with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, former director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. This release surprised but did not offend me, as I'm a strong supporter of government transparency. However, it has also reminded me of another signal message that the public might find of interest that is also pertinent to the alleged recovery of off-world technology. Out of respect for the author's confidentiality, I've been sitting on this message for a number of years. I have also redacted portions of the document to protect the identity of the author. However, I recently obtained the author's written permission to release it. It has also now been approved for public release by the Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review, or DOPSR. My purpose in releasing this document in the wake of the government's blanket denials regarding the possession of off-world technology is simply to help others understand why I and some others consider these allegations worthy of investigation. Then looking at this exchange of messages here, this is between Christopher Melon and a senior USG official. As you can see, certain things have been blacked out, but the first message says, blank and I are making huge progress getting into the CR program. I'm assuming that means crash retrieval program. He plans to meet with you at some point. The blank would be slack-jawed if they found out what we know now. Then Christopher Melon's message was blacked out, and the response is, right now we haven't gotten that far back. We're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 50s. We're vacuuming up info as blank gets read in. We now know the management structure and security control systems and ownership of the CR. We also know who recovers landed or crashed UAPs under what authorities. We also know that a still highly classified memo by a secretary of the U.S. Air Force in the 1950s is still in effect to maintain the cover-ups of UAPs. That's big right there. Then the last message says, we also know that SES-2, who's the Air Force gatekeeper. And it says that the name was redacted here for us so that we can't see it, but that it was provided to Congress. As you can see, the senior government official claimed that they were being granted access to an alleged U.S. alien technology recovery and exploitation program. I won't comment on the organization they work for, but I can confirm the individual had plausible access and was high-ranking, considerably more so than whistleblower Dave Grush. As you can see, this individual claimed to be gaining deep insights into the program and even provided the name of the alleged Air Force gatekeeper for this alleged secret realm. I've shared an unredacted copy of this message with some staff and members of the various congressional oversight committees. To the best of my knowledge, none have elected to contact the alleged U.S. Air Force gatekeeper to check the veracity of this claim. Aware of the government's categorical denials of anything related to extraterrestrial life, I submitted a copy of this brief exchange to the Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review, DOPSR. DOPSR confirmed the text is unclassified and approved it for public release. However, I also recognize that those making the determination that the document is unclassified would not likely be cleared for such an acutely sensitive program if it did exist. Further, the government could hardly deny approval to release this information without to some degree confirming its sensitivity and legitimacy. So although I'm relieved to have some confirmation that the document is unclassified, I also recognize the truth could be more complicated. I think most people receiving information of this kind from a senior government official would naturally take the issue seriously, while still holding reservations about such a wild and sensational claim. Then they show another version of that same message we looked at earlier, and continues on to say, it is important to stress that regardless of the alleged technology recovery issue, the UAP topic is one that requires serious continued congressional and executive branch attention. In just the last few years alone, over 1,000 military UAP reports have been recorded. This is in addition to a wider pattern of mysterious and disruptive drone overflights over U.S. bases and warships. Fighter aircraft from Langley Air Force Base recently had to be relocated after weeks of drone overflights at Langley that the Air Force seemed impotent to address. The Air Force still does not know who was operating those craft or where they came from. And it's not just Langley. There have been many similar unsolved cases elsewhere in recent years. These include incidents at Anderson Air Force Base's sensitive facilities on Guam, a large region of the United States containing U.S. ICBM missile silos. Navy vessels off both the east and west coasts have been extensively surveilled. U.S. Air Force training ranges in Arizona have been violated, and more. If we didn't have a culture of trying to shame and humiliate military personnel who see and report unusual things, the military would undoubtedly have many other credible reports to evaluate. With such extraordinary demonstrated vulnerabilities, far more serious than a mere Chinese balloon, there is an urgent need for our government to aggressively investigate incursions of restricted military airspace regardless of the truth of any allegations about recovered off-world technology. I share the message below with some trepidation. I worry about the privacy of the author and the privacy of the U.S. Air Force individual whose name I've redacted. I worry, too, that some will mistakenly assume this is a smoking gun document and all we have to do now is to get the author to step forward. However, it is important to note that this individual now claims that although they became aware of the program, they were ultimately denied access. The author of the message still believes there are recovered materials, but they admit that they have not seen or touched a recovered craft. So unfortunately, this individual will not be able to put this issue to rest, even if they were willing to come forward, which they're not. I wanted to share this with the public simply to help others better understand the kind of information that has caused some of us to take allegations of recovered off-world craft materials seriously. What would anyone think who received a message like this? Further, this is only one of a number of sources, 4 of whom I successfully introduced to Arrow. However, this individual, as well as another very compelling witness, still refuse to meet with Arrow because they do not trust the process. They might, however, be willing to speak with a small group of members of Congress behind closed doors. I will continue to explore that possibility. So it seems he really wants people to know why him and so many others take this topic so seriously, and he wasn't playing, so he came with receipts.
Yeah, I'm really happy that he's clapping back.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, oh, well, if you guys are going to do this, well, then here, have that.
Right. At this point in the game, I really think that Arrow, that they are themselves a disinformation, entity, right?
Okay.
I don't think that's what it was supposed to have been set up.
No, definitely not.
I feel like that's what it's become.
That's what it's turned into. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they are doing the most to
the literal most.
Yeah, the most to try to steer the narrative away from anything exotic. Yeah, everything is either balloons or it was a drone, or it was a fishing boat pulling a bunch of fishing nets.
Oh, that one.
Right. Okay. All right. That one probably was a bunch of fishing boats pulling fishing nets.
All right. Okay.
But, it just goes to show that, it feels like Arrow, all they want to do is just keep the topic focused on it's something prosaic.
And I mean, Chris Melon even basically said that because he's like, look, I have other people that want to come forward with other information, but they don't want to go to Arrow because, quote, they don't trust the process.
Right.
It's like Arrow is not where it's at.
Right.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
So to elaborate on this story even more, let's look into that UFO crash in Kingman, Arizona in more detail. So from the video description box of a video that we're about to show you the highlights of, consider the following information. The Kingman UFO crash recovery story refers to an alleged incident in May 1953 near Kingman, Arizona, where a UFO was said to have crashed and have been recovered by the U.S. government. The key details are as follows.
On May 21st, 1953, a metallic oval-shaped craft about 30 feet wide and 3.5 feet high allegedly crashed about 8 miles northeast of the Kingman Airport. Government officials reportedly sent a team of around 40 scientists to investigate the crash site. Witnesses described the craft as being made of unusual, non-earthy materials.
Say what?
Well, yeah, I'm
Go
not
ahead.
sure what that means. But metallurgist Leonard Stringfield concluded the object was not constructed on Earth. Okay. Next to the craft, a tent was guarded by military police, and inside was the body of a 4-foot-tall humanoid creature in a silver metallic suit. The craft and remains were quickly removed from the site, reportedly taken to either Area 51 or Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The incident was kept secret for years until it was first reported by columnist Frank Scully in his 1950 book, Behind the Flying Saucers. Researcher Preston Dennett and others have investigated the Kingman crash, interviewing witnesses and uncovering additional details over the years. The Kingman UFO crash is considered one of the best verified alleged UFO incidents in the United States, though the full details remain disputed and controversial.
A tweet from the UFO Joe concurs by saying, quote, "We're making huge progress into getting the CR program. We're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 50s. Said by senior government official to Christopher K. Mellon. Here's George Knapp's February 2020 report on Kingman and 3 craft that allegedly made their way to the ground in 1953. In the following clip, we are going to hear that news story from George Knapp and from Captain Bill Uhouse, who also speaks about what he knows regarding this historic UFO crash and his personal experience with experimental craft and even meeting aliens. Check this out.
Spring 1953, the Atomic Energy Commission unleashed a series of massive explosions at the Nevada test site, codenamed Upshot Knothole. In the same time period, across the state line in Arizona, witnesses reported seeing a fleet of 8 flying saucer-type craft engaged in what looked like a dogfight. This is an artist's rendition of the event. According to historian and former museum curator Harry Drew, 3 of those unknown craft ended up on the ground near Kingman in May 1953.
So I didn't go into this with a preconceived notion that I would find the Kingman UFO anything. I never expected a second one. And I thought it was all done. And then the information about the third one on the 24th came to me.
Drew spent a decade poring through old records and newspaper accounts, tracking down original witnesses, and eventually stitched together a tale far more complicated than the granddaddy of UFO crash stories, Roswell. In his public lectures, Drew explains how the Kingman story first surfaced in 1973, years before Roswell became well known. A newspaper ran a story about a retired Nevada test site technician named Arthur Stansel, who said in May 1953, he and other team members were transported from Indian Springs, now Creech Air Base, to a remote desert location in Arizona to recover a secret experimental craft that had crashed. Stansel was a real person who believed the downed craft was far beyond any known technology. In his book, 7 Days in May, Harry Drew explains what became of the 3 craft that fell from the sky. One, he says, was obliterated when it smashed into the mountainside that towers above Kingman, setting off a fire. Another, resembling this artist's drawing, was found intact in a desert area miles outside of Kingman. And a third came down hard, clipped a rocky butte, then crashed adjacent to a small reservoir. Military security camped out around the site until the recovery team arrived and took the unknown craft back to a base in Nevada.
According to Harry Drew and his investigations, this is the spot, the exact location where in May 1953 an unknown craft crashed to the earth after clipping that butte.
Drew says he found proof that military teams camped around the exact crash site, including military-issued food canisters that dated back to 1953.
Water has come down through this area. It has exposed cans. They go down into the ground a ways, probably not much more than half a foot.
UFO writers have speculated that if the Kingman stories were true, then maybe the nuclear tests in Nevada caused the unknown craft to be knocked from the sky near Kingman. Drew says the real cause was a trio of immensely powerful experimental radar sites set up in and around the town.
The retrieval team arrived just in time on the 22nd of May when the Red Lake craft, flying down the flyway from north to south, ran through a corridor where high output, high energy, short pulse microwave radiation radar was installed and operating. Complaints locally about birds being killed, and I mean all kinds of things that happened.
The story is hotly debated even within UFO circles. Drew says he's been able to document not only the crashes, but how the craft were secretly transported to Nevada. And one of those machines was essentially intact, he says.
That craft didn't even have a scratch on it, okay? None. No damage at all.
George Knapp, 8 News Now.
Now, Harry Drew believes each of the 3 craft carried crew members. So what became of the bodies?
Spent 10 years in Marine Corps, 4 years working with the Air Force as a civilian, doing experimental testing on aircraft. Since my Marine Corps days, I was a pilot in the service and a fighter pilot, and fought in World War II after the latter part of World War II and the Korean War conflict. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I took a job with the Air Force at Wright-Patterson, doing experimental flight testing on various different modifications and tech orders that they had incorporated into aircraft, various different aircraft, F-89, back then the B-47, F-102, and those aircraft. While I was at Wright-Patterson, of course, I was approached by an individual that, and I'm not going to mention his name, to determine if I wanted to work in an area on just new creative things, okay? And apparently that was the flying disc simulator. What they had done, they had selected several of us, and they reassigned me to Link Aviation, which was a simulator manufacturer. At that time, they were building what they call the C-11B and F-102 simulator, B-47 simulator, and so forth. And they wanted us to get the experience before we actually started work on the flying disc simulator, which I spent 30-some years working on. The simulator wasn't actually functional until around 1958, where the simulator was actually operable. Craft that they used to build, which is a 30-meter one, was the one that crashed in Arizona, Kingman, Arizona, back in 53 or 52. I think it was 53. That's the one they used. That's the first one that they took out to the test site. It landed about 15 miles from, which used to be an Army air base, which is now a defunct Army base. I forget, I can't recall the name of it. But that particular craft, there were some problems with, number one, getting it on the flatbed to take it up to Area 51. They couldn't get it across the dam because of the road. It had to be barged across the, the Colorado River at the time, and then taken up to where people go now, up 93, out to Area 51, which was just being really constructed at the time, and taken down those dirt roads and out to that particular area of the test site. There were 4 aliens aboard that thing, and those aliens went to Los Alamos, and they put certain people in there with them, people that were astrophysicists, just general scientists, to ask them questions. The way the story was told to me was there was only one of them that would talk to any of these scientists that they put in the lab with them. Only one of the aliens. The rest wouldn't talk to anybody, or even have a conversation with them. First they thought it was all ESP, or what do I want to say?
Telepathy.
Yeah, mental telepathy. But most of that is kind of a joke to me, because they actually speak. Maybe not like we do, but they actually speak and can converse. We had a long period of introduction into meeting, say an EVE, an alien. And I called him J-Rod. Of course, that's what they called him, but that wasn't his, I don't know if that was his real name or not, but that's the name that the linguist gave him, so he knew J-Rod, And I did draw a sketch of him when he was, before I left him in a meeting, and I provided it to some people, but that was my my impression of what I saw. He'd sound just like, if you spoke, he'd sound like you. You know, he's like one of the, you know, a parrot, you know, but he'd try and answer your question, you know. His skin was pinkish, but a little bit rough, you know, and that kind of stuff. Not, you know, not horrible looking, you know, or to me, he didn't look horrible looking.
So after watching that video, I can't help but see similarities between what Jason Sands has come out and said and the information that was just presented in that George Knapp video.
Okay.
You know, even though Jason Sands, you know, doesn't have, in my opinion, the same level of credibility that David Grush had coming out. You know, I mean, there's like some echoes of information, you know, coming across there, right?
Yep, that's why I include these things. You know, I you know me, I'm a synchronicity sleuth. So I love when things like that come together. And our next story is basically going to feature just that.
Yeah. You know, you have to take all of this information, you know, with a grain of salt and make up your own mind, right?
Yeah.
As always, you know, all the links of everything that we feature in the news show will be featured down below, right? And all the tweets and everything. So if you like it, please be sure to check it out.
Definitely.
What does consciousness, parapsychology, and manifesting all have in common?
Let's find out. Earlier in the show, we saw a clip of Jesse Michaels on The Big Thing talking about Jason Sands. Well, that conversation had more gold nuggets in it, and I was able to mine a few pieces out for us. So in this next clip, we will hear about disclosure, the role that consciousness plays, how manifestation actually works, and how parapsychology may be the umbrella that all of this phenomenon falls under. You do not want to miss this. Check it out.
Where do you think we're going with this? You think that something's going to happen?
Well, I think the most empowering thing is like, don't wait on some external event.
Yeah.
Because even if the thing you are kind of implicitly waiting for were to happen, like, I don't know, some top DOD official were to be like, yeah, we have had, you know, the former head of the DOE or something came out. Something crazy like that. You know, like, what would that actually change? I don't know.
Right.
Or if, like, you saw a picture of the craft per our conversation before, where it's a complete relativization of everything. I don't know how much that actually shifts. And so, what I would, you know, there's a really great, the End of the Invisible College by Jacques Vallée, which was written, I think, 1975. You know, it's a really good overall kind of survey level overview of knowledge at the time, which is ironic because it's kind of where we're at now in terms of our theoretical understanding of this stuff, because it's so confusing. But at the end, he goes, trust no one and look within, or something. And I think it might have been an Emanuel Swedenborg, this Swedish mystic, this sort of quoting him. And I truly think if I were to connect the UFOs with any branch of science, I think the Townsend Brown lineage is really interesting. But I think maybe the even more interesting kind of lineage is, you know, a little field called parapsychology, which is, it's an awkward term because I think it compiles all sorts of anomalies into, you know, one sort of scientific branch. And it started in the 19th century, and, you know, you have famous people like William James who were super into it. But really, I think there's a clear tether between the end of quantum mechanics, you know, sort of 1930s, 40s, and 50s. It's not the end of quantum mechanics, but sort of, you know, the end of, you know, a lot of the really productive stuff, and parapsychology. And I think all of the top quantum physicists at the time were flirting with the idea that your mind actually does collapse the wave function.
Yeah.
So you have this Schrodinger's equation. You know, real reality is actually probabilistic. It's a sort of wave function. It collapses into sort of a more discrete reality. Like, it's why macroscopic reality, you see this table, it's one table, it's, you know, it's definite or whatever. And if you look at, you know, a lot of the UAP stuff, it seems like, you know, almost like a quantum macroscopic object. Like, these things are sort of appearing, they're materializing, dematerializing. The dirty little secret is they probably occur when you're in, you know, certain heightened states of consciousness. Like, the only repeatable things around UFOs, heightened states of consciousness, A, and B, nuclear stuff.
Right.
And those are the 10. If that's defined science, it has to be somewhat repeatable. You have to look at those two things. And so if you were to take the consciousness angle, you know, whether it's Schrodinger himself, who created this, you know, equation that governs all of quantum mechanics, you know, Niels Bohr, Max Planck, Heisenberg wrote a book about, you know, called Life and Physics, where he talks about this. all of these guys flirted with the idea that the mind might actually have more of a connection with the material world than we understand.
Yeah.
And you don't have this sort of dualist, this is your mind and this is matter, and your your consciousness formed as like a happy accident due to atoms randomly bouncing off of each other in like a sort of way that converged into you as a person. And so I think this is a very long-winded thing and way to answer your question, but I think if you look at a lot of the parapsychology research, like Princeton had a lab, it's all about your internal state actually governing your ability to affect the material world and even your epistemological, what you can see in the material world. And so I think developing your own, who you are as a person and your own kind of epistemic aperture, like what you can see, I think is the true route to understanding this stuff on a deeper level. And it's not fucking waiting for some news.
Yeah, 100%. But I think that I agree with 99% of that, because the 99% of it is everything you just said. You got to figure it out for yourself. You have to, and hence the manifestation of it all.
I think a lot of those guys were into this stuff too. Like Carl Jung obviously wrote a book about it, and then he wrote a book about called Flying Saucers, but also was very interested in synchronicities. And then, I think it's very connected with the manifestation stuff, because that stuff can't be real at all if there is this sort of hard dualist cutoff between mind and matter, unless you're of the mind that, like, if you just get into a specific mindset, you like take the actions necessary to do the thing.
Right.
I'm not. I think and I think if you were to actually poll people, I think if most people were actually honest with themselves, they would be like, yeah, in my life, there are many times where I've thought of something and it came into my life in a way that, like, it wasn't just me mechanically working on the thing over a long time horizon. It just came into my life like the next day. What the fuck is that?
Yeah,
we don't know. Well, and then you look at like the government remote viewing. 23-year psychic spy program from 1972 to 1995.
We're gonna Kona Blue. That was just you were bringing that up, and it's kind of interesting that you are bringing this up, that we are having this conversation, because that Kona Blue stuff that just dropped, you read it and you're like, consciousness, remote viewing, controlling something with your mind, is what just came out and got everybody talking. This, to me, like, to go back to your point here, was like the manifestation when you want something so much. I mean, there's like, I wouldn't say religions, but there are like, people that, make a living going, manifest this, make a vision board, do these things, in order to bring something to you. It's very powerful, the mind. And that's where when I say the science could be the key, it's almost like going back to, it's the mind that I think is the key. This gets me excited, the consciousness idea.
We were talking about kind of parapsychology manifestation earlier. Yeah. And there's a quote from the book of Mark, I believe, and I'm going to botch it, so I'm just going to paraphrase it. But it's like, what you measure, you get more of. And it's just this like beautiful, like, what you focus your attention on, you'll see more of in your life. And I think it's a more mystical thing than just like the prosaic. Like, obviously, if you're like looking out for something, you'll like notice it more. You like call it into your life more. And so that's why I think like we think too much about the UFOs in this abstract, like, are they real? Does it exist? Like, I think what your orientation towards all of this is like very important.
So this video gave me the perfect excuse to use a tweet from Dr. Diana Walsh-Pasulka that I've been holding on to for a while. This is like the perfect opportunity for me to use it. So check this out. She says, coincidences and or synchronicity put you in contact with people you should be in contact with, or with information you should know, through music, texts, billboards, random conversations, songs, etc. Love that. I've said it before and I'll say it again, everybody. Consciousness is the key to this whole thing. The whole thing.
Right. It's pretty amazing when you start having all these number synchronicities. You start seeing 222 or 111. In our case, 143. I love you. It's amazing.
Yeah, and when he was talking about manifestation, thoughts become things. Where thoughts go, energy flows. So whatever you're consistently thinking about, it's like you're literally going to create that. Whatever you got going on internally is what's going to present itself externally, right? So that's just a super powerful thing to understand. We are conscious creators. Well, some people are unconscious creators, but they're still creating, even though they don't know that they're creating. But it just like lends a lot of credence to things like the double slit experiment. It's like, think about that and how that applies to this situation. And yeah, I just wanted to present that to you guys, and I hope it resonates.
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep in mind that we still don't have a good definition of what consciousness is.
Right.
Scientifically speaking. So that's still being studied. Are we actively collapsing the wave function, into matter?
Apparently, according to the double slit experiment, we are.
Yeah, and
which is a wild concept if you think about it, right? Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Are we in the Matrix?
Chris Melon does a really good deep dive on this, and this is like a recurring theme with his studies, and if you haven't checked out any of his videos on consciousness and how it relates to the phenomena, and the nature of reality, I definitely recommend you go check it out.
For sure.
Give it to us straight, a plea for transparency. In our next story, Bryce Zabel, co-host of Need to Know with Ross Carhart and Bryce Zabel, made a heartfelt plea regarding the secrecy surrounding the UAP UFO phenomena, and directed it to those ultimately responsible for keeping the truth from humanity.
Point of Contact tweeted, I know what I'm about to say is going to be controversial to a number of people who study the UFO UAP issue. Based on past reactions, some will immediately accuse me of promoting a threat narrative. If that's the way this goes down, I accept that. I'm simply afraid that our current search for data is just another attempt to prove to skeptics that UFOs are real. We know they are real, and we've known that for decades. It's time to move beyond that with at least some of our energy to trying to find out who they are and why they're here. My bottom line, I'm worried. It is time to consider the UFO UAP reality as a national security threat and likely a global threat. And if it is not, then it is up to the governments of the world to share the photos, videos, data, studies, reports, witnesses, and other related evidence that prove it otherwise. Enough is enough. There are 3 reasons I'm concerned about what may be happening. Number 1, UAP are continually interested in nuclear forces around the world going back to the development of the atomic bomb in the 1940s and continuing through today. They've shown the ability to switch on and off our missiles. The explanation of Chinese drones simply could not be sufficient, given that China didn't even have an air force until 1949. And there's no evidence to suggest that in the early years of these reports that any military power on Earth, Russia, China, US, had access to the level of advanced technology reported back then through today. Number 2, there are simply too many accounts of some form of non-consensual interaction with humans, and I'm no longer willing to discount the tens or hundreds of thousands of such cases that have been reported over many decades and across many nations as fraud or insanity. No one seems to be willing to include the abduction phenomenon in the current search for data discussion. I am. I don't like it at all. As the sidebar to this, there are also a large number of cases confirmed by the US government where humans have been injured when in close contact with this phenomenon. Number 3. These others who appear to be among us have not shared knowledge of their existence or why they are here in the first place, let alone why they are interested in our nuclear weapons or our bodies. They enter our military bases and our bedrooms with equal stealth. This is simply unacceptable. If Russia or China were doing this, we would be in a state of war with them over it. I've long suspected that what drives the cover-up isn't just potential disruption of energy markets as some people would like us to believe. The phenomena as we experience it seems extremely strange, and I imagine our motivations may be equally strange when it comes to dealing with it. I believe the problem is that the truth is either so bizarre as to be incomprehensible, or it is frightening and potentially hugely disruptive, or both. I call for confirmation or disclosure not because I think it will all be good news, but because a basic right of human life on Earth should be to know the essence of our reality. The folks who will likely take me on over promoting a threat narrative often say that if these others meant us harm, then they would already have done it. I don't buy that argument. If we're talking about a non-human intelligence, then they may see time differently than we do. As it is, the US often thinks in terms of 4 years for our presidential elections, and long-range planning is the exception and not the rule. Other nations may see things in a longer view, like decades, but in NHI, what if they see things over a time span of 1,000 years or 10,000 years? Then 8 decades since the end of World War II would be but a blip in time. They could easily be moving from surveillance to action and be right on schedule. I don't know this answer, but I do believe I have a right to know it to the extent it is knowable. I'm with Ronald Reagan when during the Cold War, his policy towards the Soviet Union was trust, but verify. We have apparently trusted too long without verification. If there's definitive proof that what is going on is either benign or even positive, then let's see it. Otherwise, we need to proceed with caution. If there are human institutions that have learned otherwise, it's time for them to share their work. You may not share these views, but we would at least all agree that we're in this together. Thanks for your consideration.
Yeah, so I agree with what Bryce Abel said there. It's important, to make those pleas to the people that are gatekeeping, so to speak, right? I mean, if this phenomena is what everybody thinks it is, if it is what we think it is, then it is so important to humanity, that it doesn't need to just stay in a tight-knit, 20-person group.
Right.
I mean, I think they can come out and say, yes, this is real. Yes, we are in contact, or we're being visited, potentially, without divulging classified information.
Yeah.
Without giving away secrets or whatever. What's the harm in coming out and saying, yes, this is real?
Well, I think that Ryan Graves said it best when he made that quote about how the government does not have the right to classify reality.
Right.
It's one thing to keep a secret, but it's another thing to keep such an influential part of humanity's history from humanity. It's
Right.
like you said, it's like, who the hell are these 20 people or whatever to know this mind-blowing, reality-altering fact and keeping us all in the dark? It's just we got to get it out there. So there are some things that Bryce said that I agree with. There are some things he said that don't really resonate. Parts of his message seemed very fearful, and I don't subscribe to that. I mean, I try to keep an optimistic point of view. I understand not everything is love, light, rainbows, and glitter farts, but I mean, if you keep it, like we were talking about before, thoughts become things, right? So I like to stay in a positive mindset. But anyways, the fact that he's just asking for whoever's holding on to this truth, who's ever the gatekeeper of this information that is just straight up like, no, humanity doesn't deserve to understand this. That's who he's pleading to. And I totally agree. It's like, enough is enough. Give it to us straight. Cut the bullshit and let us know what's really going on here.
Yeah. To be 100% honest, I don't think disclosure is going to come from the government.
I don't either.
I think disclosure ultimately is going to come from, those research groups outside of the government, like Avi Loeb's The Galileo Project, like Sky 360, like, the Soul Foundation with Gary Nolan. I mean, these, I don't trust the government to really divulge anything.
I don't either.
So there's an argument, that disclosure has already happened. That's what Lou Elizondo is saying, that, hey, look, they come out and admitted that these videos are real, that we don't know what these objects are in the videos, I mean, to me, that's not like true disclosure, it's a little bit, but it's not.
I understand how it can be considered disclosure and how it can't be considered disclosure. I mean, I really think the reason why disclosure is not going to come from the government themselves is two main reasons. And we've spoken about this prior to this, but
many times.
First of all, it's because as soon as they reveal this truth, that's going to unravel the 100 years worth of lies that they've been telling, right? Like since however long ago they've been covering this thing up. So it's going to unravel all of that. So that's one reason why they wouldn't want to say what's really going on. And then this is a little bit controversial and it's kind of like my own opinion, but hear me out. I think the second reason is because it's going to then expose also all the things that they've been doing with this knowledge that we're not privy to. For example, this is a little controversial, but like Jason Sands talks about like 20 and back, and that relates to the secret space program. And I did some research on the secret space program, and I don't know if it's really real 100%, but I mean, I can't deny it either. It's like at this point, anything is a freaking possibility. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think that would also expose all the things that they've been doing with this knowledge that we don't know about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. But anyway, yeah.
You know, just like Ryan Graves said, or not Ryan Graves, just like Avi Loeb has said, the sky is not classified, you know, and we need people, you know, getting data, you know, even if it's, you know, with their cell phone, you know.
Yeah.
And that what leads us into our next story, you know.
Right.
All
right. Oh, good transition.
Was
Nice.
a UFO seen over LaGuardia Airport in New York City.
Right.
You know, this week, News Nation covered a story in which a potential UFO was recorded from a plane flying over LaGuardia Airport in New York City. The woman responsible, Michelle Reyes, was aboard her flight recording the New York City skyline when something anomalous zipped through the frame so fast she almost missed it. Let's watch in this next clip how Reyes shares her story with News Nation host Ashley Banfield and UFO investigator Ben Hansen.
Michelle Reyes was flying over New York City with her daughter, and she was sitting by a window. When she did what a lot of us do, we, you know, take pictures out the window, nice video of the New York skyline. It's an amazing view. But what Michelle did not expect to see was a cylinder-shaped object zipping across her line of sight near LaGuardia Airport. Was it a bug inside the plane, maybe? Well, she played the video back to look, and no, it was not a bug. Whatever it was definitely outside the plane, and it was flying on its own, and it was really, really fast. Michelle Reyes joins me now exclusively, and I want to welcome back Ben Hansen from UFO Witness on Discovery Plus as well. Michelle, thank you so much for being here. First of all, wow, that was pretty alarming stuff. What did you do with the video, and did you reach out to authorities to share it with them?
Thank you for having me. And when I realized that I had something like this on the video, the first thing I did was I emailed the FAA to let them know what I saw, and maybe it was a safety hazard. I reached out to them. Unfortunately, I haven't heard back from them. They didn't acknowledge my email. And then I sent it to Enigma Labs and the National UFO Database.
And any response?
Enigma Labs was the only one who responded to me.
So
that's
your
how I got in
dad
contact.
apparently. Oh, okay. So, and as I understand, your dad is a former Navy guy, so you were able to share with him as well. What did he say?
I showed it to him first, and he honestly had no idea what it was either. He had no idea. He was just as baffled as I was.
Did you guys settle on the fact that it maybe was a drone? It was going awfully fast to be a drone, but was that the best guess?
He thought it may be a drone, but he didn't think that it should be where it was, that close to the aircraft. So he really didn't have an answer for me. He was just as clueless as I was. He's seen a lot of things, and he couldn't give me an answer, but if he had to guess, he would have said drone.
So it's a good thing Ben Hansen is here. You know, you host a show called UFO Witness. What do you think about this Tic Tac video, Ben?
This was incredible, honestly, because it took a while just for us to get in touch with Michelle. It wasn't for her posting it on the app. Someone had borrowed, sort of stole it from her social media and posted it as if they were her friend. So we had no idea who she was. We were looking up flights and trying to figure out which flight she was on. When we finally were able to contact her, she, for me, has been completely just genuine, sincere. We've now started to analyze the video, and I feel a little awkward saying this with her here, but find no evidence that she faked this or hoaxed it. I didn't from the beginning, but we had to run it through, you know, the proper data analysis, and it's there. It's very clear, which is unusual. So to me, I feel as though this is probably something not terribly far in the distance, but it also, there's problems with the theory of it being something as simple as an insect, which I would suspect this was happening, you know, on the ground. We're talking 200 plus miles an hour at this point. Her jet is flying. So it passes in about 1/7 of a second, and it's present in 5 frames of the video. So there's a lot we can dive into with this, but we're,
you know, shiny giant, really fast insect. It definitely doesn't look like an insect. It certainly looks like the Tic Tacs that we've seen in other naval videos as well. And Michelle, did you say there was someone else maybe on that flight who you later were able to determine saw this as well?
Yes, I had posted the video onto my social media, and one of the other moms on the flight, she said that she had noticed it when she was in the air too. So I wasn't the only one who saw it. So it was kind of, you know, a little more like nerve-wracking that someone else also saw what I saw.
Well, I hope the authorities are watching tonight, and I'm sorry to say, you know, that you didn't get the attention that you should have when you alerted them to videos like this. I think it behooves all of us to just at least forward the information. We don't need to make judgment on it, but for heaven's sake, acknowledge that this is unusual, and it certainly does resemble some of the other unusual things we've seen before.
So I, for one, really appreciate this video. You know, she's just casually peeking out the window, recording that beautiful New York City skyline that I miss so very much. And all of a sudden, you know, zoop, that little thing goes right through her frame. And I got a little pet peeve with the host of News Nation. She said it looks like a Tic Tac. I'm sorry, but no, it doesn't. Tic Tacs are white and cylindrical. This thing is gray metallic, and to me, it looks like kind of like a triangle, but we're seeing like the side view of it. So that's just a pet peeve that I have.
So what you're saying is it could be a disc, just we're looking at it point on.
It could be a disc, or it could be like a TR3B, the triangle ones, you know. But and I'm poking fun at the fact that she said Tic Tac, but I refute that because Tic Tacs are white, which this thing is not, and Tic Tacs are cylindrical, which this thing does not appear to be. But that's just my own thing. Anyways, so yeah, I think that this possibly could be a UAP or a UFO. It does seem very similar to a lot of other UAP sightings that we've seen before in the past. So, you know, why wouldn't they be flying over New York City? Hey,
I'm wondering if there was other maybe security camera systems on some of the buildings that might have
cool.
recorded the same.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that there was one other mother on the plane that she said also saw it, but I don't think that other lady got any recordings of it. But it would be cool to see a different camera catch that thing. Now, of course, Clown of the Year Mick West already came out and said it's a balloon. He posted a picture of a #1 like birthday balloon and was like, "Oh yeah, this is it." I rolled my eyes so hard they got lost in the back of my head. I was like, "Here we fucking go again."
Yeah. I mean, could it be a balloon? Possibly. You know,
right, but this goes back to what Bryce Zabel was saying in his plea for transparency, to where it's like we don't have to prove anything to the debunkers anymore. Like we already know what they're going to say. It's a balloon, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a drone, right? Yeah. But we really know what's up, right? Like we really know what's up. So it's like just cut the bullshit, give it to us straight, and let's just come out with all this. But
yeah, you know, they have this need to debunk. They have this need to know what an object is. You know, just by a few frames, you know, of something zipping by.
They just make me so irritated.
You know, all they're doing is they're making their best educated guess, just like anybody else. However, I feel like they are coming from a point or perspective of there's no way that UFOs or aliens could be real or here. So everything has to.
They have their mind made up.
That's what I feel like.
They have their mind made up before they even consider the possibility.
They're playing to their community.
Have they ever said this thing is anomalous, or has it always been bird, plane, drone, balloon?
That's a good question.
I've never personally seen. Okay, well, I've never personally seen them come out and say, "Oh yeah, this thing actually is anomalous." It's always like a birthday balloon,
right?
Bart Simpson balloon.
They always have an explanation.
For
everything. And, you know, I mean, even scientific studies, right? Those scientists don't always come up with a conclusion, you know, just because there's you know, something being studied does not mean you have to have a conclusion for every single thing.
Okay.
You know, it is possible, you know, and this is often the case, you know, that we just don't have enough data to have a conclusion yet, you know. And just off of that one video, that's not enough information to make a determination that it's a balloon.
Well,
you know, in my opinion,
the clowns of Twitter world do. I'll just leave it at that.
And
but
the debunkers, you know, the people that are out there purposefully to debunk.
Right.
You know,
well,
it's always something.
Literally always something.
Right.
But let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Was that really a UFO? Was it a #1 birthday balloon? Or, you know, just let us know what you think. I personally appreciate this story. I'm glad it was covered on News Nation. Appreciate News Nation a whole lot for continuously covering this stuff and not doing what mainstream media does and pretend like it doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to them. And like I said, let us know in the comment section below what you think. And that concludes this week's UAP and UFO news show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. And while you're here, please do us a favor, smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop us a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word and make disclosure happen. We don't need the government to tell us. We can all tell each other. Let's raise the collective consciousness together in unity. All right, guys, much love, peace, and namaste.
I know I should be happy too, but I'm dying. 'Cause Gary Nolan blocks me. The world is crumbling all around me. I wanted Gary to tell me why he shared Chris Bartell's brain scans on TV. It's my birthday, friends all around.